The first thing I heard when I stepped across the threshold of Jones Prime was not music or laughter, but the low, exasperated mutter of my daughter's groom. "Oh no," Liam Jones groaned, his polished shoes squeaking on the marble floor. "That old man is here again." The words carried further than he intended. A few nearby guests turned, their conversations faltering as their eyes shifted toward me. I straightened my shoulders, adjusted the charcoal pinstripe suit that fit my frame like armor, and walked slowly into the glow of chandeliers. At 68, I had learned that silence could sting sharper than any retort. But then I noticed the way Liam's father froze. Patrick Jones, the patriarch of this empire, the man who had built Jones Prime from a modest bistro into what he boasted was a multi-million-dollar hospitality dynasty, suddenly went pale. His eyes narrowed, searching my face as if to confirm a nightmare he had hoped never to see realized. He leaned closer to his son and whispered, not nearly quietly enough, "Is it really him?" The tension rippled outward like a stone striking water. Guests paused mid-sip of champagne. Waiters balancing trays of hors d'oeuvres hesitated, their steps faltering. A string quartet at the far corner played on, but even their notes seemed brittle, tentative. I knew the weight my presence carried. For more than 4 decades, my name, Harold Martin, had appeared in the pages of national newspapers and glossy magazines. Some knew me as a food critic, others as a hospitality columnist. In truth, I had been both. My words had closed restaurants and elevated chefs to stardom. A single review, carefully sharpened, could slice away millions from a company's reputation. I had not asked for such power, but I had wielded it responsibly. At least, I tried. Today, though, I was not here as a critic. I was here as a father. My daughter, Jacqueline, was radiant in ivory silk. The dress shimmered beneath the amber lights, beads catching and throwing reflections like starlight. She looked younger than her 29 years, hope shining in her eyes, a hope that tightened around my chest like a vice. She deserved joy. She deserved someone worthy of her loyalty. But the man waiting at the altar, my soon-to-be son-in-law, was not that man. I moved further into the reception hall, the scent of polished wood and floral arrangements mingling with something less pleasant, nervous anticipation. The Jones family had spared no expense. White silk drapery covered the worn edges of the restaurant's aging decor. Strategic lighting disguised the threadbare carpet. To the untrained eye, the illusion of grandeur was flawless. But my eye was far from untrained. I saw the smudged glassware on a tray near the bar. I caught the faint mildew smell that even fresh lilies could not mask. And I remembered every detail from my last visit, when Liam had thrown me out of this very establishment like a common intruder. Now here I was, invited to bear witness as my daughter bound herself to him. I did not speak, not yet. Words, once released, cannot be recalled, and the moment for mine had not yet come. Instead, I let the room absorb my presence. I let Patrick Jones see the flicker of recognition in the eyes of his staff, the way waiters exchanged uneasy glances, whispering behind trays. They knew who I was. They remembered. Liam, for all his bravado, could not hide the flicker of unease in his posture. His jaw tightened, his hand gripping the edge of a chair until his knuckles blanched. He had mocked me as that old man, but he was beginning to understand that some old men bite harder than anyone expects. The ceremony had not yet begun. Guests still mingled, sipping champagne, balancing canapes on napkins printed with the couple's initials. Yet already the air felt charged, fragile, as if a storm hovered just beyond the draped walls. I caught Jacqueline's eye across the room. Her face softened with relief. She had not spoken to me in weeks, persuaded by Liam's poisonous words, but the child I had raised alone after her mother's passing still lingered within her. She smiled, hesitant, uncertain but real. That smile anchored me. Whatever happened today, it would be for her. The whispers grew. "Is that Harold Martin?" One guest murmured to another. "The critic? The columnist? The one who closed down that hotel chain last year?" The tide of recognition spread, and with it came a silence more potent than shouts. Even the musicians faltered, their bows hovering above strings. Patrick Jones, ever the seasoned businessman, forced a smile that did not reach his eyes. He started toward me, hand extended in practiced hospitality. but I saw the sweat beading along his hairline, the stiffness in his shoulders. I accepted his hand, firm and steady. "Good afternoon," I said, voice even, carrying just far enough for those who strained to listen. "I am here only as a guest." It was true, at least for now. Yet beneath the chandeliers, amid the murmured speculation, I felt the weight of inevitability pressing in. This wedding day would not be remembered for its floral arrangements or expensive champagne. It would be remembered for something else entirely, because some truths, once revealed, cannot be hidden again. The trouble began weeks before the wedding, at my own dinner table. Jacqueline had insisted it would be good for me to meet Liam properly, away from the noise of the city and the distractions of his family business. She wanted us to sit down together, to share a meal in the house where she had grown up, to bridge the gap between two men who would soon be bound by her love. I agreed, of course. I would do anything for my daughter. That morning I rose before dawn, set a lamb roast to marinate with rosemary, peeled potatoes, chopped fresh carrots and onions, kneaded dough for bread. Cooking was one of the few ways I still felt close to Virginia, my late wife. She had taught Jacqueline to braid challah on this very countertop, flour dusting her nose as she giggled. Tonight, I told myself, I would create the same sense of warmth, a reminder of the family Liam was about to join. When the doorbell rang, I straightened my tie and wiped my hands on a clean towel. Liam stepped in, carrying the faint smell of cologne and impatience. His khakis were pressed to knife edges, his polo shirt clearly tailored. He glanced around the living room as though entering a museum. "Interesting little place," he said, his voice flat. "Bit old-fashioned though, isn't it?" I forced a smile. "We like it here. My wife chose the wallpaper, and Jacqueline grew up under this roof." From the kitchen doorway, my daughter appeared in a blue sundress, radiant, a touch of nerves in the way she adjusted the engagement ring on her finger. He kissed him on the cheek. "Liam, you found it all right?" "Eventually. GPS has trouble with neighborhoods like this," he replied, his eyes still scanning the framed photographs along the hallway. Jacqueline at high school graduation, our family dog asleep on the porch, Virginia holding baby Jacqueline in her arms. "People of your generation usually don't understand current trends in home design," his expression seemed to say even before he opened his mouth. We sat at the dining table, the wood polished until it gleamed, linen napkins folded just so. I served lamb chops with roasted vegetables, setting down a basket of warm bread. Liam settled into his chair as if he were doing us a favor. He pulled out his phone, glanced at a message, and only then picked up his fork. "So, Liam," I began evenly, "Jacqueline tells me you're involved in your family's business. Hospitality. Is that right?" He cut into the lamb with surgical precision, took a tiny bite, and placed his fork down. "Yes. High-end portfolio management. Complex strategies that require understanding market dynamics most people your age wouldn't grasp." I heard Jacqueline's quick intake of breath. "Dad is very savvy," she interjected. "He's always given me good advice." Liam's smile was thin. Different generations, different approaches. Nothing wrong with keeping things simple. Simple. As if my life's work were a child's lemonade stand. I poured him water, though he had not asked. "And the wedding? Have you two decided on a venue?" Jacqueline's face brightened. "We've been looking at several." "Our reception will be at my father's restaurant," Liam interrupted, his voice swelling with pride. "Jones Prime, the finest establishment in the region. 70 full-time staff. Annual revenue over $50 million. We own the building outright. No loans, no investors, pure family money." The words came like bullets, each one meant to establish dominance. "It sounds impressive," I said lightly. "Your father must be quite the businessman." "The best," Liam replied, puffing up. "He built an empire from nothing. Now we're the premier destination for governors, executives, dignitaries. The kitchen alone cost more to build than most people earn in 10 years. Across the table, Jacqueline shifted uncomfortably, her eyes flicking to me, silently begging for peace. I gave her a small nod. For her sake, I would keep the evening civil. But inside, a calculation began to form. I watched Liam push food around his plate, never taking more than a perfunctory bite. He spoke of money, of status, of empires and reputations. Not once did he ask about the lamb I had spent hours preparing, or about the memories etched into this house. Not once did he mention love. By dessert homemade apple pie, untouched except for a single fork mark, he was already glancing at his watch. "We should discuss practical details," he said, as if the wedding were a merger to be negotiated. Jacqueline tried valiantly to keep the conversation afloat, but the warmth had drained from the room. The man she loved sat across from me like an accountant balancing ledgers, every gesture calculated to remind me of my supposed insignificance. When he finally rose to leave, his chair scraped the hardwood with a grating sound. He shook my hand perfunctorily, kissed Jacqueline's cheek without affection, and strode to his car. The headlights disappeared into the night, leaving the faint scent of exhaust in the air. Jacqueline wrapped her arms around herself. "I'm sorry, Dad," she whispered. "He gets defensive about the business. He didn't mean—" "I understand," I said, though my voice felt hollow. Later, as I washed the untouched pie plates, I thought about Jones Prime, the empire, the 70 staff, the building worth tens of millions. Liam thought I was just an old man, clinging to memories in a house past its prime. He had no idea what I had seen in my time, no idea that I knew empires often crumble from within. And I intended to find out whether his was already starting to fall. The morning after that strained dinner, I sat at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad, the same kind I had used for decades of notes. The lamb bones from the previous night sat untouched on the counter. Even the dog had refused them, and I could not help but think it was fitting. Liam's words still echoed 70 staff, 50 million in revenue, an empire of pure family money. He had rattled them off like a politician boasting about polls, but numbers can lie. A smile can lie. A polished restaurant can lie. Patterns, however, rarely do. I opened my laptop, typed Jones Prime into the search bar, and let the results unfurl. The official website was glossy and impressive. High-resolution photographs of meticulously plated dishes, lobster risotto gleaming beneath stage lights, filet mignon sliced into perfect pink medallions, duck confit resting on beds of truffle potatoes. Captions promised culinary excellence, world-class service, and memorable experiences. The wedding packages were described in near-poetic terms: 4-course meals beginning at $450 per guest, premium wine pairings available at an additional cost, unforgettable evenings in the heart of sophistication. I had read such lines before. They were written for brochures, not for truth. With a few more clicks, I moved from carefully curated marketing to the raw world of customer reviews: Yelp, Google, travel blogs. At first, the praise was predictable comments about luxurious decor, celebrity sightings, and 5-star ambience. But buried among the compliments were complaints, recent and frequent. Waited 40 minutes for appetizers. Filet overcooked, lukewarm when it arrived. Server rolled his eyes when I asked about the wine list. Price outrageous for the quality delivered. These were not isolated grumbles. They were consistent, layered, detailed. Specific servers named, exact dates recorded, dishes described with precision. No coordinated smear campaign reads with such authenticity. I leaned back, pen tapping against the pad. A pattern was emerging. Declining quality, indifferent staff, a restaurant coasting on reputation. Next, I checked public health records. The city's inspection reports were available online. 2 violations in the last year: improper food storage temperatures and inadequate hand-washing facilities. Minor, yes, but telling. Strong restaurants guard against such blemishes with fanatic care. For a moment, I thought about Patrick Jones. I had crossed paths with men like him before, founders who built something meaningful, then entrusted it to sons who cared more for appearances than substance. The empire still stood, but its foundations trembled. The fog pressed against my kitchen window as I scribbled notes. Consistent service delays. Declining food quality. Staff arrogance. Health violations. Overpriced compared to execution. The critic in me stirred. I had retired officially, yes, but instincts do not retire. They remain, sharp as ever, like old knives kept in a drawer. I thought of Jacqueline, radiant in her blue sundress, defending Liam with soft words. She wanted to believe in him, to protect him, to smooth his rough edges with her kindness. But marriage is not kindness alone. Marriage is trust. And what I had seen in Liam was not trustworthiness but arrogance, an arrogance that spilled from the dining table into every corner of his life. The more I read, the more certain I became. If the restaurant reflected the man, both were hollow beneath the polish. I closed the laptop and looked around my house, the photos on the wall, the worn furniture polished by years of use. This was not a palace, but it was real. Everything here had been earned, every memory honest. Could the same be said of Joan's prime? Of the family my daughter was preparing to join? My pen scratched across the yellow pad, one final note: investigate in person. Online words could mislead, photographs could deceive. But stepping through those doors, tasting the food, feeling the pulse of the room, those never lied. I folded the pad shut, slid it into my briefcase, and stood. Jacqueline believed Liam was protecting a family empire. I feared he was guarding a crumbling facade. If I was right, her future would be built not on marble but on sand. And I would find the truth, even if it meant walking straight into the lion's den. 2 nights later, I stood outside Joan's Prime, collar turned up against the evening chill. From the street, the restaurant projected elegance. Etched glass doors, brass handles polished to a false shine, a burgundy awning that whispered exclusivity. To the casual eye, it looked like the crown jewel Liam had promised. To me, it looked like stage dressing. I pushed through the doors. A hostess in black scanned me with quick calculation. Her smile was practiced but tight. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation?" "Just one for dinner," I replied. She hesitated, then said, "We're quite busy, but I suppose we can fit you in." Her tone made clear that she considered me unworthy of the better seats. I was led past empty tables to one squeezed near the kitchen doors, where servers burst through carrying trays with the grace of linebackers. From here, I had the view I wanted. The dining room was designed to impress: dark wood panels, crystal fixtures, white linens. But I saw the flaws immediately. Water rings on glasses, upholstery with hairline tiers, carpets worn thin where staff had marched for years, corners cut, maintenance deferred. The kind of details a casual diner misses but a critic catalogs without mercy. A young waiter approached, hair gelled, posture too relaxed. "Something to drink?" he asked, his eyes already darting to a table of wealthier patrons. "Water is fine," I said, "and a few minutes with the menu." When he returned, I ordered filet mignon, medium rare, with potatoes gratin. He smirked faintly, as though my choice amused him, and disappeared. I settled in to observe. Servers circled tables unevenly, some rushing, others loitering. Appetizers arrived at one table while another waited for drinks. Entrees emerged before salads were cleared. Coordination, the heartbeat of a fine restaurant, was missing. Around me, discontent simmered. A woman at the next table whispered, "20 minutes for bread. Ridiculous at these prices." Her husband scowled at his empty wine glass. My meal arrived after 40 minutes. The steak, once sliced, revealed a center cooked to gray, not pink. The potatoes had congealed into a heavy mass. The waiter, already turning away, muttered, "Kitchen's backed up. If you want a redo, another half hour at least." I shook my head. This will do. I forced myself to eat slowly, cataloging every flaw. The steak was lukewarm, the potatoes bland, the plate cooled before it reached me. In the corner, staff huddled, whispering complaints about managers. From the kitchen came the clang of dropped pans and sharp voices barking blame. This was not excellence. This was decay. I laid down my fork and began to write notes discreetly on my pad. Staff arrogance, service chaos, food below standard, prices unjustifiable. That was when the room shifted. A door slammed. Sharp footsteps cut across the hardwood. "What is he doing here?" a voice demanded. I looked up to see Liam Jones striding from a back office, face flushed crimson. His eyes locked on me, and for a moment I thought he might drag me from my chair by force. "You," he spat, stopping at my table. "Did you come to spy on my restaurant?" I set my napkin down calmly. "I came to have dinner, Liam. That is all." "That's nonsense," he snapped, his voice rising. Heads turned, forks stilled. "You're here to undermine our business, to embarrass me." The waiter froze, holding a tray mid-air. Other diners craned their necks, whispers flaring. "Liam," I said softly, "you're making a scene." "Get out!" His shout rang against the crystal chandeliers. "Out now!" The dining room had gone silent, save for the pounding of his voice. Guests stared. Some with pity, others with curiosity, all with the certainty they were witnessing something extraordinary. I stood slowly, left exact cash and a tip on the table. "I'll leave," I said loud enough for nearby ears. "Thank you for the educational evening." Every eye followed me as I walked to the door. Behind me, Liam raged on, sputtering about spies and harassment, his own staff shrinking from him in mortified silence. The night air outside felt sharp, cleansing. My heart beat steady. I had not raised my voice, not lifted a hand, yet the damage was done. Not to me, but to him. Inside, he had shown every guest exactly who he was, and I had seen more clearly than ever the man my daughter intended to marry. The phone rang less than an hour after I returned home from Jones Prime. I had not yet removed my jacket, the smell of overcooked beef still clinging to the fabric, when Jacqueline's voice exploded across the line. "How could you do that, Dad?" she cried, not even offering a greeting. Her tone carried more fury than I had ever heard from her. "Liam told me everything." I sank into my armchair, coat still on my shoulders. "Jacqueline, slow down. Tell me what you think happened." "You know what happened. You stormed into his restaurant, humiliated him in front of customers and staff. You tried to destroy his family's business." Her voice cracked, pain mixing with anger. I closed my eyes. The scene replayed in my mind, but from her words it was clear. Liam had gotten to her first, shaping the story before I had the chance. "Sweetheart, that is not the truth. I was a paying guest. I ordered a meal, waited almost an hour, and ate what they served. He made a scene, not me." "Stop lying!" she shouted. "He said you harassed the staff, complained about everything, demanded attention just so you could criticize him later." Polite requests for bread had turned into demands. Observations had turned into harassment. Liam's spin was complete, and my daughter had swallowed it whole. "Jacqueline," I said quietly, "I did none of those things. Please, just—" "No," she cut in, her sob sharp through the receiver. "I can't believe you. You don't want me to be happy. You hate that I found someone successful. You can't stand that he built something important while you just sit here clinging to the past." The words hit harder than Liam's outburst had. I stared at the family photographs on the wall, Jacqueline at 6 with her missing front teeth, Jacqueline in cap and gown at her high school graduation, Virginia holding her as a newborn. For my daughter to think I wanted anything less than her happiness was a knife twisting in my chest. "I only want the best for you," I said. "That has never changed." "Then stay out of our lives." The line went dead. I sat in silence, phone heavy in my hand. Outside, fog pressed against the windows. The house seemed larger, emptier, as though her absence filled every corner. The days that followed blurred into weeks. I called her again and again, 17 times in total. Each attempt ended in voicemail. My messages grew shorter, then longer, then shorter again, desperation ebbing and surging like the tide. "Jacqueline, please call me back." "Sweetheart, we need to talk about what really happened. I love you. Nothing else matters." None were answered. Text messages showed as delivered but never read. I imagined her phone lighting up with my name, imagined Liam urging her to ignore it, imagined her thumb hesitating before sliding the screen away. The Sundays were the worst. For years she had come for dinner, filling the kitchen with her laughter, teasing me about my stubborn recipes, insisting we add one modern dish to the menu. Now the chair across from mine sat empty. I still set 2 places out of habit, then cleared them in silence. At work, colleagues assumed my weariness was age. They did not know my daughter had turned her back. They did not see the hollowness in my eyes when I closed my office door at night. 3 weeks into the silence, I drove to her apartment. I sat in my car outside, headlights off, staring up at her window. I imagined knocking, imagined her opening the door with relief, imagined reconciliation. But I also imagined Liam standing behind her, his arm draped possessively across her shoulder, his smirk daring me to try. I drove away without knocking. Spring crept forward. The air warmed, blossoms appeared along the sidewalks, but inside I felt no renewal. My world had contracted to the size of an empty dining room. Then, one Tuesday evening, an envelope arrived. Heavy cream paper, addressed in elegant script. My fingers trembled as I slid it open. Mr. Harold Martin was cordially invited to the wedding of Miss Jacqueline Catherine Martin and Mr. Liam James Jones. Date: Saturday, the 17th of May. Reception to follow at Jones Prime. I set the invitation on the kitchen table. The same table where Liam had once dismissed my lamb as simple. The same table where Virginia had braided challah with our daughter. After weeks of silence, she had invited me. Out of duty? Out of hope? Or perhaps at Liam's urging, so I could witness the triumph of his family's empire firsthand. The reception would be at Jones Prime, of course it would. The same place where I had been publicly humiliated, where Liam had shown his true nature to a roomful of strangers. I stared at the invitation until my coffee grew cold. In less than 1 month, my daughter would marry a man who had turned her against me. And I had to decide whether to stand by quietly or to confront the truth, even if it tore us apart forever. The 17th of May crept closer like a deadline I could not escape. Each morning I woke with the invitation still sitting on my nightstand, its cream paper catching the light like an accusation. The words were simple: date, time, location, but they carried the weight of my daughter's future. Saturday would change everything. On the morning of the wedding, I rose before dawn, habit pulling me from bed. Steam from the shower blurred the mirror as I shaved carefully, each stroke of the razor deliberate. Over the years, I had prepared for countless reviews, Michelin hopefuls, celebrity chefs, hidden gems, but none had demanded the discipline of this day. I laid out my suit with the precision of a soldier dressing for battle. Charcoal wool, subtle pinstripes, cut to fit perfectly across shoulders still broad despite age. A crisp white shirt, pressed until it gleamed. Burgundy silk tie, the color deep and restrained. Sterling cufflinks, a gift from Virginia on our 20th anniversary, polished until they reflected the morning light. Every piece carried meaning. Every detail was armor. I pulled polished leather shoes from their box and buffed them one last time. They shone like mirrors, reflecting not vanity but resolve. When I looked at myself in the full-length glass, I hardly recognized the man staring back. Sleepless nights and grief had carved deeper lines into my face, but my eyes were steady. Professional armor had become personal. On the dresser sat the wedding gift, a Tiffany crystal vase, wrapped in silver paper. Inside, the envelope taped to its side were 3 words written in my hand: "Love you, always." Nothing more, nothing less. I tucked the envelope into my breast pocket, just above my heart. Breakfast held no appeal, though I forced down toast and black coffee, fuel for the hours ahead. My thoughts circled endlessly, mapping outcomes, rehearsing words, anticipating confrontation. Over decades, I had learned to walk into restaurants prepared for hostility. Chefs cursed. Managers threatened. Owners begged. But this would be different. This was not a review for readers. This was my daughter's life. At 8:30, I checked the time. The ceremony began at 2, the reception immediately after. I had hours, but not for hesitation. I gathered keys, wallet, invitation, sliding each into its place as if assembling weapons. The house was quiet as I paused at the doorway, too quiet. For 30 years, this place had been filled with Virginia's laughter, then Jacqueline's footsteps, then the warm chaos of family dinners. Now silence pressed in from every wall. I turned the key in the lock and stepped outside, leaving the emptiness behind. The drive blurred into instinct. Roads passed, landscapes shifted, but my focus remained fixed. My daughter's face rose in memory, the way she had defended Liam at my table, the way she had looked at me across the reception hall weeks earlier, torn between love and loyalty. I gripped the wheel tighter. Today I would give her the truth, whether she wanted it or not. By late morning I arrived near Jones Prime. From the outside the restaurant gleamed, dressed in silk drapery and floral displays to disguise the wear I knew lay beneath. Wedding magic, spun to cover cracks in the foundation. Guests were already gathering, men in tailored suits, women in gowns that shimmered like jewels. Laughter floated across the entrance, but beneath it I felt the hum of unease. I parked a block away and sat for a moment, inhaling deeply. This was no ordinary assignment. If I failed, I would lose more than credibility. I would lose my daughter. I stepped from the car, straightened my jacket, and adjusted my tie. The weight of years pressed down, but I carried it willingly. Each step toward the entrance felt heavier, yet clearer. Inside, I knew Patrick Jones would try to mask his nerves with charm. I knew Liam would bristle, his arrogance fraying at the edges. I knew Jacqueline's eyes would search mine, desperate for reassurance. And I knew that by nightfall, the truth would stand naked in that hall, no matter how much silk and champagne they poured over it. The doors of Jones Prime loomed ahead, brass handles gleaming, etched glass reflecting my face. An old man, yes, but not broken. I placed a hand on the cool brass and whispered to myself, "Today, either I win her back, or I lose her forever." Then I pushed the doors open and stepped inside. The reception hall glowed with carefully staged elegance. White silk draping softened the aging walls, candles flickered across long banquet tables, and bouquets of ivory roses disguised the faint scent of mildew that clung to the building's bones. To the untrained eye, Jones Prime had never looked finer. To mine, it was makeup on tired skin. Guests clustered in small groups, balancing champagne flutes, voices carrying the high notes of celebration. A string quartet played at the far corner, the same musicians I had seen weeks earlier struggling to mask their unease. Tonight, every bow stroke was practiced, precise, desperate to impress. I stood near the entrance, invitation card still tucked into my breast pocket, observing quietly. It did not take long before whispers started. A ripple passed through the staff, first servers stealing glances, murmuring in low tones. The man who had been thrown out weeks earlier had returned, not hiding in the shadows but standing tall in the center of their polished stage. "Dad!" Jacqueline's voice cut through the noise. She moved toward me in her wedding gown, ivory silk catching the candlelight, beads shimmering like tiny stars. Her face lit up with relief, and when she embraced me, the months of silence between us melted for a moment. "I'm so glad you came," she whispered. "I wasn't sure if you would." "Wild horses couldn't keep me away," I replied, my throat tight. "You look beautiful, Jacqueline. More beautiful than your mother on our wedding day, and that's saying something." She laughed softly, blinking back tears. "I've missed you so much. This month felt wrong without you." Her words wrapped around me like balm, but already I sensed eyes turning in our direction. Staff pointed discreetly. Guests tilted their heads, curiosity sparking. The story of the old man at the restaurant was returning to life before their eyes. At the far end of the room, near the bar where speeches would later be made, Liam stood stiffly beside his father. Patrick Jones's posture was practiced diplomacy, but I caught the stiffness in his jaw. His gaze flicked toward me, sharp and assessing, before he leaned close to his son. Liam's expression soured immediately. His lips formed words I did not need to hear to understand. That old man again. Patrick's eyes widened, his composure slipping. His whisper carried just enough to reach a few nearby guests. "Is that really him?" The words rippled outward, fueling speculation. Heads turned, conversations faltered. A name began circulating in hushed tones. Harold Martin, the critic, the columnist, the man whose pen could gut an empire with a single stroke. Liam adjusted his tie nervously, his bravado thinning. He glanced at me with the tight smile of a man cornered. Guests sensed the shift. Champagne glasses paused midair, laughter softened to murmurs, all attention slowly pivoting to the tension between two families bound by vows and divided by truth. Jacqueline clung to my arm, sensing the undercurrent. "Dad," she whispered, "they're all staring." "Let them," I said gently. "We have nothing to hide." The room's energy thickened. Servers moved more stiffly, their trays trembling slightly. 214. He quartet missed a beat before recovering, their music now fragile against the weight of silence. Guests exchanged looks, some curious, others uneasy, as if expecting fireworks. Then Patrick Jones began walking toward me, each step measured, his face composed into a mask of cordiality. but I saw the sweat glistening at his temple, the slight tremor in his hand as he adjusted his cufflink. Liam stayed rooted near the bar, his expression dark, his confidence unraveling thread by thread. Patrick stopped before me, extending a hand. "Good afternoon," he said smoothly. "Patrick Jones, father of the groom. We haven't been properly introduced." I took his hand firmly, my voice calm but carrying. "Harold Martin, father of the bride." A murmur ran through the crowd. The name alone landed like a stone dropped in water, spreading ripples of recognition. Patrick's smile faltered. "I do hope everything here meets your expectations." Around us, conversations hushed further. Guests leaned closer, eager to catch every word. The fate of reputations, perhaps even marriages, balanced on this fragile moment. "Don't worry," I replied, my tone even, my words chosen like the opening line of a review. "Today I am here only as a guest, not a critic." Gasps fluttered through the room. Staff exchanged panicked glances. Guests whispered to one another. A critic, a columnist, Harold Martin. The truth had slipped free, undeniable now. Patrick's handshake trembled, his face pale. Behind him, Liam's bravado shattered completely. He clutched his champagne glass with shaking fingers, watching his empire of confidence collapse under the weight of revelation. Beside me, Jacqueline's eyes widened with dawning realization. Her voice trembled. "Dad, this is why you never wanted me to tell him what you do. Sometimes it matters how people treat you," I said softly, "when they think no one important is watching." The silence deepened, thick and expectant. Around us, the wedding reception hung suspended, waiting for what would come next. The air in the reception hall felt charged, every guest waiting for someone to break the silence. Patrick Jones stood before me, his practiced smile slipping as whispers spread like wildfire. Liam lingered behind him, pale, sweating, eyes darting for escape. I held Patrick's gaze. As I said, "Today I am here as a guest." Then, I let my words hang, knowing the crowd had already filled the silence with their own conclusions. It was Liam who cracked first. He strode forward, voice tight with panic. "Please, Mr. Martin, forgive me. I had no idea who you were. I never would have." His words faltered under the weight of the memory we both shared. His shouting, his order to throw me out. "You never would have what?" I asked softly. "Treated me like a nuisance? Mocked me at my own table? Humiliated me in front of strangers? Respect should not depend on a resume." His face flushed crimson. "I was protecting my family's reputation. By attacking paying guests?" I tilted my head. "Or by silencing the father of your bride?" Gasps rippled again. Patrick cleared his throat, stepping between us like a man patching cracks in a dam. "Gentlemen, this is neither the time nor the place." But it was too late. The guests were no longer here for champagne toasts or string quartets. They were here for truth, and the truth stood bare before them. I turned to Jacqueline. Her hands trembled as they clutched her bouquet, but her eyes, Virginia's eyes, were clear and searching. "Is this true?" she whispered to Liam. "Did you throw my father out of the restaurant?" He hesitated, the worst answer possible. He provoked me. He was judging us, trying to find flaws. "Were there flaws?" she pressed. Her voice was quiet but carried, sharpened by pain. He opened his mouth, closed it, then glanced at his father. Patrick's expression revealed nothing, but the silence condemned more than any words. Jacqueline's grip on my arm tightened. For the first time in months, she looked at me not with suspicion but with recognition. "Jacqueline," I said gently, "I only wanted to see how the man who claimed your future behaved when he thought no one important was watching. I never intended to hurt you, but you needed to see him as he truly island." Tears welled in her eyes. She looked between Liam, defensive and flustered, and me, steady and calm, the weight of choice pressed down on her shoulders. The quartet had stopped playing entirely. Guests leaned forward in their chairs. Even the servers froze, their trays forgotten. Finally, she spoke. "Liam, respect is not negotiable. If you cannot show it to my father, how can I trust you to show it to me?" Her words struck like a gavel. Liam stammered, reaching for her hand. "Jacqueline, please. You're overreacting." She stepped back. The rejection was small but final. Patrick tried again, his voice low and coaxing. "Daughter, emotions run high on a wedding day. Surely we can discuss this." "I am not your daughter," Jacqueline said firmly, "and I will not marry your son today." The hall erupted shocked murmurs, some sympathetic, some scandalized. Liam's glass slipped from his hand, shattering against the polished floor. He stared at the fragments as if his empire had crumbled with them. I guided Jacqueline toward the exit, her gown trailing behind us like a banner of defiance. No one stopped us. Even the staff parted silently, their eyes filled with something close to respect. Outside, cool evening air wrapped around us. Jacqueline drew in a shaky breath. "Dad, I was blind. He twisted everything, made me think you were against me. I am so sorry." I held her close, the way I had when she was a child frightened by storms. "There is nothing to forgive. You are my daughter. That is all that matters." She pulled back, tears streaking her cheeks but relief shining through. "What do we do now?" I looked at the darkened street, at the glow of Jones Prime behind us, and felt a quiet certainty. "We live honestly," I said. "We build something real, not polished illusions. And we never let arrogance decide our worth." She nodded, squeezing my hand. Together we walked away, each step carrying us farther from the wreckage of false promises and closer to something stronger: truth. Inside, Liam and Patrick would scramble to contain the scandal. They would blame me, blame each other, blame fate, but it would not matter. The empire had been revealed for what it was: a house with crumbling foundations. The world would remember this day not for its floral arrangements or expensive champagne, but for the moment a bride chose truth over illusion, respect over arrogance, and family over pride. And for me, it would always be the day I got my daughter back.